Speaking of ass, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't heard from him in a long time. It's Ron Paul. Now, Ron Paul, for those of you who don't know, was one of Russia's first astroturfing successes. He was nowhere near as popular in his ideology and what he was pushing as everybody thought, and he was largely getting this odd boost from overseas, including money. And this is very short. But his thing is, weeks before U.S. election, Israel massively escalates attacks on Lebanon, as if they are somehow related. Like the whole world has to pause the attacks that are happening on them and their response to it because we're having an election. In some cases, I'm sure the Ukrainians are tiptoeing around a little bit where they would rather stride because they know the election hinges on some of it. And I'm sure he believes the same thing about Israel to some degree. But that said, if you're being, especially with Hezbollah, if you're being fired on and you're Israel, you're not going to go, should we really? Because I got news for you. As all the attention that went to Gaza, all the attention that went to the Palestinians and support for them, and rightly so, specifically about the Palestinians in Gaza, nobody gives a fuck about Hezbollah. Not really. There's some people whinging about it because they hate Israel, but nobody is throwing themselves under the fucking bus to protect Hezbollah or anybody, the people they surround themselves with on the Lebanese border where they're firing rockets from. There is not the same built up structure of support for the Palestinian state or the Palestinians as an ethnic group or an ideology or what have you. They're technically neither, but whatever. Or the idea that there should be a two-state solution or indeed a three-state solution, that Gaza and the West Bank would be two totally different countries, with one of them being, more aligned with Jordan, for example. West Bank would be more like aligned because it was originally called Transjordan, something like that. Perhaps there's an argument to be had there. None of that conversation is happening about Lebanon. And the idea that the Israelis would hesitate at all to take on Hezbollah when Hezbollah went, oh, there's an opening. They got attacked on October 7th. Let's fucking bomb them, right? Okay. But according to this dickhead, I was about to say he believes something. I don't know what he's going to say. More than likely, it's just Russian talking points.
Israel said last week, we are going...
Thousands of Lebanese flee war zone with Israel as death toll surpasses 180 in a single day. The government of Lebanon has ordered that classes be... Tyler Durden. Okay, so that the dude who writes under a pseudonym from fucking Fight Club. Classes will be canceled for public and private schools across various parts of the country, especially in the south. It's becoming evident that Israel-Hezbollah fighting is expanding, and with Israeli attacks getting bigger and bigger. Current emergency directive will see schools closed for at least 2 days, with extension after that. New measure is aimed at protecting civilians. Impacts the government, South Lebanon, Nabatea, Bekaa, Baalbek, Carmel, and the southern suburbs, according to the Education Ministry. As you would expect.
Going into Lebanon, and as
also Hezbollah will need those buildings to fire rockets from.
We see this morning, they have started to do that. Now, they haven't engaged with troops yet, but Zero Hedge conveniently gives us a good summary. Thousands of Lebanese flee war zone with Israel as death toll surpasses 180 in a single day. I think it's now closer to 300 with over 1,000 wounded. Now, what they want to do is and we talked about this last week, they want to be able...
Jesus Christ, I was not ready for what this dude looked like. I guess there's a perfect hinge point between creepy youth pastor and angry televangelist past his prime, right? There's got to be a moment where you're like, I'm kind of both.
Able to move the Israelis back up to northern Israel that have been threatened by Lebanon's rockets coming back down in response to Israel's rockets going in there because it's costing them a lot of money. But it is a mass escalation. Let's go to that next one from the Hedge article. Israel appears to be encouraging the depopulation of southern Lebanon so that it can expand the war.
Why would they encourage the depopulation if they're trying to genocide the Lebanese out of existence? Oh, wait, because they aren't. They're warning people, like they do in Gaza, that bombs are coming. Please clear. We're blowing up the facilities, and we're not interested in killing lots of people. They literally were like... now, again, after they've blown up the pagers and the radios, I can understand why people aren't immediately going to their phones and checking for messages. It might be counterproductive in that regard.
Many thousands have reportedly fled as panic sets in. Israeli army spokesman Daniel Hagari announced Monday, that's today, to all the residents of villages in Lebanon, soon we will attack terrorist targets in Lebanon and call on everyone who is near their properties or inside houses where Hezbollah is hiding ammunition to stay away from them immediately.
By the way, hey, do you guys remember when Hezbollah said that to Israelis? By the way, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim Israelis living in the northern part of Israel. Remember when Hezbollah warned Muslims and Jews and Christians and others living in the northern part of Israel that that bombs would be coming in? Oh, right. They never did.
To this, I would say, Dr. Paul, we've seen this movie before. Everything Israel bombed in Gaza was Hamas, whether it was a hospital, a church, what have you. And we're seeing the same thing now. Everything that Israel bombs in Lebanon is Hezbollah, regardless. And we're seeing a lot of propaganda that there's munitions under every residential building. So
have you seen these buildings blow up, fuckwad?
when they hit it, it's hit. And I would say it's war, so I'm sure there's propaganda on both sides.
Yeah, probably.
Of the war, but we do know that it's getting very, very deadly, and there's really a question.
Yeah, war tends to be that way.
As to how far this will go.
Also, for the record, after October 7th, does anybody think Hezbollah had to bomb Israel from the north? Was there any reason for that area? Was there a specific, would it stop any of the arms or anything that they were dealing with in Gaza? Maybe ultimately, was it supposed to be a distraction of forces to blow up civilian homes in the northern part of Israel while the fight was going on in the south? Was that in the defense of Hamas? No. Or even the Palestinian people? No. Did they have to do it? And by the way, does Israel have to take it? Is there something that Israel and Lebanon have been, ginning up, like the situation in Gaza with the Palestinians and Hamas for a long time, other than the Lebanese Muslims want all the Israeli Jews to die and get the fuck out, which is, I'm just saying, not a good point of argument.
It almost seems like our policies are there to aggravate it and bring it
Our policies
on. Some people wanted to bring on a statement this weekend. You wouldn't be surprised about this, but Lindsey Graham was sort of, sentimental in a way. Boy, what we need to do is get Iran. They're the ones that are running this thing. We got to destroy Iran.
Last video with Mark Levin, we're talking about the fact that he keeps saying our and they and our. Now, granted, he's a Republican, so this sort of fits in that regard. But the Mark Levin was externalizing the they with the press because the Drudge Report called out Trump for Nazi-esque statements about Jews and his little hand. I'm not going to make the gesture. I'm not going to do it. Nobody's going to catch a freeze frame of me doing that shit. I'm way ahead of you fuckers. But this is a similar kind of thing. Like, dude, it's not our problem. You got a problem with Lindsey Graham. You guys are in the same fucking party, technically. Call him. And I don't give a fuck. I've been working for a long time, as have most of my Democratic friends, to either broom Lindsey Graham or get him to finally come out of the closet and lighten the fuck up and maybe experience life outside of that shell. And maybe there's some clarity that comes with it. Maybe.
Which is really scary.
We would say to Lindsey, who's this we, Lindsey? Because it ain't going to be you, that's for sure. Israeli diaspora.
I think what he means is it's that Lindsey Graham isn't going to fight when it comes to a fight with Iran in, that as far as soldiers and whatnot. That's not true of any serving member of Congress or especially the Senate.
The minister says Lebanon isn't a state. he advocates taking the South. So they've talked about this now. They want to take a massive chunk of Lebanon, which, remember, that's what they did with Syria. They took the Golan Heights for themselves. So it looks like now they want to take.
Wait, didn't Trump give them the Golan Heights?
A big chunk of Lebanon.
Tensions between Israel and Hezbollah are escalating substantially, with scores of people killed in Lebanon in the past week. Israel's far-right government is stepping up the rhetoric and talking war. Hezbollah Minister Amichai Chikli is the latest voicing pro-war rhetoric. This is a zero hedge again, because that's all they do is read. So basically, Ron Paul's podcast is now a zero hedge podcast, or a book on tape club. Declaring overnight comments on X that Lebanon does not exist, it does not, in his opinion, fit the definition of a state, and that this gives Israel every right to invade and seize southern Lebanon. Okay. I mean, I don't know what their functional government situation is. I mean, obviously, Hezbollah is not, it controls that area and is not technically an arm of the state. So the argument could be that southern Lebanon is not a state because the state has abdicated that area to the control of Hezbollah, right? I mean, this happens all over Africa all the time. I don't know what.
On for themselves, and they call it a buffer zone. This is also very much a land grab, which is what we know Gaza is about as well.
Oh, okay. Gaza's a land grab. So they were just waiting for rape squads to just come over the wall, and they're like, oh boy, now we'll get them. Yeah. You know, land for hostages. That's, you know, you can lose a couple hundred people. You know, fuck it.
They want all the Palestinians out so they have more beachfront territory.
That's the Trump plan, I think.
Very clear. Israeli ministers are very open. They're not shy at all about talking about it. You know, it's a very open thing, and so that's also what we're looking at in Lebanon.
Wow. All right. So that is, according to Ron Paul's Liberty Report, it's all about real estate, which would be the why they're not big fans of Jared Kushner and why they think this is all just a real estate grab and always has been and stuff like that. I mean, you hate to see them fighting amongst each other. You know, I think a lot of us are like, well, I feel a responsibility to clean up some of what's going on in you know, in the Republican Party. Not going to. Now, how am I doing on time? Shit, only got 10 minutes left. All right, a couple of things really quick. You're watching How Sparks Make It Worldwide, by the way, the greatest live stream on the history of live streams, period, end of story. I'm by myself here. Well, I mean, you're here, obviously, and you're a wonderful addition to it. But as far as hosting this thing, it's just me by my lonesome. You'll see a bunch of these other podcasts and live stream dudes with like bringing on other people to pick up the slack and kind of carry the conversation, or ask somebody like Jamie to throw up an image for them in the middle of it because it's getting too boring or they're too easily confused. I do it myself because I work for a fucking living. That said, hit the like, share the show, etc., etc., etc. Patreon.com/HalSparks is a great way to support the show on the regular. And it's because of our Patreons and the consistency of them that I'm able to do the show without putting anything behind a paywall, and I will not do that anyways, even if it means going broke doing it. But I'm not hiring a stew, Carrie. I'm not going to have a stew sitting by there just so that I can make them listen to stupid ideas. I'm not gonna. No, I will not.